August 15, 2021, a date that will forever be remembered in the annals of history. A date etched in history, symbolizing a monumental shift in global dynamics. On this day, the world watched in disbelief as Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, fell to the Taliban. The scenes were surreal, almost like a nightmare unfolding in real time. It was a swift and stunning collapse, marking the end of a 20-year Western presence in the country. The speed of the Taliban's advance caught everyone off guard. Images of chaos and desperation flooded our screens.
Or onto the runway, trying to flee the country in what can only be described as a chaotic exodus. Now, people are literally clinging on to US military aircrafts as they try to take off.
Of the Taliban's return desperately sought escape. The fear was palpable, and the desperation was heart-wrenching. This was a pivotal moment not just for Afghanistan, but for the world. The international community was left grappling with the implications of this sudden change. It raised profound questions about the nature of conflict, the limits of intervention, and the enduring human cost of war. The images of suffering and loss were a stark reminder of the heavy toll of prolonged conflict. The fall of Kabul was a stark reminder of the complexities of the conflict in Afghanistan. It highlighted the intricate web of political, social, and military factors at play. It was a culmination of decades of war, political maneuvering, and the unwavering resilience of the Taliban. The history of Afghanistan is a testament to the enduring spirit of its people. The events of that day continue to reverberate, shaping the geopolitical landscape and forcing a reassessment of the West's role in the region. The world is still coming to terms with the consequences of that fateful day. To understand the fall of Kabul, we must rewind to the events that first entangled the United States in Afghanistan's fate. The story begins with a tragic day that forever altered the course of history, September 11, 2001. A day that dawned like any other, but ended in unimaginable horror. A day seared into America's collective memory. The images of that day are etched into the minds of millions. The horrific attacks on American soil, orchestrated by Osama bin Laden and his al-Qaeda network, shook the nation to its core. The devastation was unprecedented. Bin Laden, harbored by the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, became the face of a new global threat: terrorism. The world watched as the U.S. prepared to respond. The U.S., under President George W. Bush, responded with unwavering resolve. The message was clear: those responsible would be brought to justice. Operation Enduring Freedom, a military campaign aimed at dismantling al-Qaeda and removing the Taliban from power, was launched. The world held its breath as the U.S. military mobilized. U.S. forces, joined by international allies, quickly toppled the Taliban regime and drove them into hiding. The initial success was swift and decisive. It seemed like a swift victory, but it was merely the opening act in a long and arduous conflict. The challenges that lay ahead would test the resolve of all involved. The years that followed the U.S. invasion were marked by a complex and often frustrating campaign. Efforts to rebuild Afghanistan and establish a stable government were met with persistent challenges. The Taliban, though weakened, regrouped and launched an insurgency. The conflict dragged on, with no clear end in sight. By 2020, the U.S., under the Trump administration, sought a negotiated exit from the long war. The Doha Agreement, signed in February 2020, outlined a U.S. troop withdrawal from Afghanistan in exchange for security guarantees from the Taliban. The agreement, however, excluded the Afghan government, raising concerns about the Taliban's true intentions. It also significantly reduced U.S. air support to Afghan forces, a critical factor in their ability to hold back the Taliban. With the U.S. commitment waning, the Taliban sensed an opportunity. In May 2021, as U.S. forces began their withdrawal, the Taliban launched a lightning offensive across Afghanistan. City after city fell to the insurgents, often with minimal resistance. The Afghan National Security Forces, trained and equipped by the U.S., crumbled under the Taliban's advance. Years of corruption, low morale, and a sense of abandonment by their U.S. allies had eroded the ANSF's will to fight. The Taliban, emboldened by their victories and the perceived weakness of their enemy, pressed their advantage. By mid-August, they had encircled Kabul, poised to retake the capital they had lost 2 decades earlier. The fall of Kabul was swift and stunning. Initial U.S. intelligence estimates, overly optimistic, predicted the city could hold out for months. Those estimates proved tragically wrong. The Taliban entered Kabul on August 15th, facing little resistance. President Ashraf Ghani fled the country, hoping to prevent further bloodshed. The Taliban's takeover was complete. They quickly secured key infrastructure, including the presidential palace, government ministries, and Puli Charki prison, releasing inmates, including, reportedly, former ISIS and al-Qaeda militants. The Afghan government had effectively ceased to exist. The country was once again under Taliban rule. As the Taliban tightened their grip on Kabul, Hamid Karzai International Airport became the epicenter of chaos. Thousands of Afghans, desperate to escape the Taliban's rule, converged on the airport, creating scenes of utter pandemonium. Men, women, and children thronged the airport's gates, clinging to fading hopes of evacuation. The U.S. and its allies launched a massive evacuation effort, airlifting over 123,000 people out of Afghanistan in a matter of weeks. But the operation, hampered by the sheer scale of the crisis and the deteriorating security situation, left many behind. Heartbreaking images of Afghans chasing after departing planes, some even clinging to the fuselage, became symbolic of the desperation and the human cost of the conflict. The fall of Kabul brought immediate and dramatic changes to the city and its people. A palpable sense of fear and uncertainty settled over the capital. Many residents, particularly women, feared a return to the Taliban's brutal rule of the 1990s, when women were denied basic rights and freedoms. Shops and businesses owned by women were shuttered. Advertisements featuring women were taken down. Sales of burqas, the full body covering mandated by the Taliban, surged. Women hid their educational credentials, fearing retribution for seeking education. The Taliban, in their initial press conferences, attempted to project an image of moderation, promising to respect women's rights within the framework of Islamic law. However, reports of reprisal killings, forced marriages, and restrictions on women's movement and employment painted a far grimmer reality. The fall of Kabul sent shockwaves across the international community. Governments and organizations around the world scrambled to evacuate their citizens and local staff. The rapid collapse of the Afghan government and the chaotic scenes in Kabul triggered a wave of criticism and soul-searching, particularly in the West. The events in Afghanistan drew inevitable comparisons to the fall of Saigon in 1975, marking the end of the Vietnam War, and the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan in 1989. Both events were stark reminders of the challenges and limitations of military intervention and nation-building. The fall of Kabul reignited debates about the effectiveness of U.S. foreign policy, the wisdom of nation-building efforts, and the moral obligation to protect those who had aided Western forces. 2 years after the fall of Kabul, Afghanistan remains a land scarred by conflict and uncertainty. The echoes of war still reverberate through its cities and countryside, leaving a nation grappling with the aftermath of decades of turmoil. The Taliban, now firmly in control, face the daunting task of governing a nation grappling with humanitarian and economic crises. Their rule is marked by a struggle to gain legitimacy both domestically and internationally. The international community, wary of the Taliban's human rights record and their links to terrorist organizations, has largely suspended aid, exacerbating the country's plight. This suspension has led to severe shortages of food, medicine, and other essential supplies. The legacy of the 20-year war and the chaotic withdrawal continues to haunt Afghanistan. The remnants of conflict are visible everywhere, from abandoned military equipment to the psychological scars borne by its people. The country faces a long and arduous path to recovery. Rebuilding infrastructure, restoring trust, and fostering a sense of normalcy are monumental tasks that lie ahead. The fall of Kabul serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict, the complexities of international intervention, and the enduring pursuit of peace in a world often defined by its absence. The memories of those lost and the stories of survival continue to shape the nation's identity. The future of Afghanistan and its people hangs in the balance, a poignant reminder of the enduring human cost of war and the elusive nature of peace. The resilience of its people offers a glimmer of hope amidst the uncertainty.